hear me and see me, and hopefully we are going to be all good. And I'm just moving around so that I can lean my arm on the back of the bench. And I can see that I have a signal, and I can see some chat, and I hope that people can see and hear me. So we've got some discussion of the weather. Wow. And I'm delighted to be here. Hello Trista, lovely to see you. Lovely to see everybody. I can see Tish in the chat. I can see Susan and Marlene. Hello everybody. Hello Dr. Benita. We do have a good signal at the moment. Hello Beatrice as well. Hello Beatrice with the spanner already. I don't know if we'll need it today. So hello Linda and Lethargy and Lorna. Nice to see you all. Dawn as well. Lovely to see you all here today. It is a beautiful day here in Lincoln today. The sun has been shining the entire day. It's been warm, it's been beautiful. Just a little bit of breeze up here on the hill, which has been pleasant for walking around, and all round. Hello Anne, nice to see you. And it has been very busy, as you will see as we start to make our way around. It's, you know, it's a Saturday afternoon, one of the first really kind of nice weather weekends we've had this year. It's a popular city, you know, with visitors, centre of quite a rural area, so there's not a, it attracts a lot of people in from the surrounding countryside, and there's a big sports event on in the city this weekend as well, which I'll tell you about a little bit later. So all in all, it is very busy. Hopefully that won't disturb us too much. Hello Peter. Lorna, you had one warm day. Well, that's good. It's how we feel most of the time in England, to be honest. Hello Elizabeth. Oh, we have got some absolute gems of houses on our tour today that you're gonna love, I'm sure. We were walking around earlier. I was walking through the planned route, and Sally Jane kept saying to me, Elizabeth will like that house. Oh, there's another house for Elizabeth. So yeah, it's definitely a city packed with history. It's a city packed with people today as well. Hopefully they're not all trying to get on the same signal as I am. Hello Fran, lovely to see you here. And so it's a city I always enjoy visiting. I don't come here an awful lot, because it's a kind of not an easy place to get to from where we live. I mean, it's not a million miles away, but it's a long old drive because of the directions you have to go. You kind of have to do two sides of a triangle when you go to Lincoln. It's you know, it is only about 90 miles from home, but it's does take quite some time. But it's a city that when I do come here, and when I'm kind of passing this way, I do always enjoy the atmosphere and the history of Lincoln, and it's a lovely place. Thanks Marlene. Sally Jane is somewhere down in the town. She's gone to get herself a cool drink and sit in the shade and read her book while I show the town to the rest of you lovely people. She's we had a nice walk around together and a nice lunch, and and now Sally Jane's getting out of the sun. English rose that she is. And, getting in the shade and having a cool drink. Hi Pete, lovely to see you. I believe you were here. Did you say last weekend, a couple of weeks ago? It's, I don't know whether it would have been as busy as it is today. It's certainly pretty busy because Lorna, only 8 degrees there. Wow. It's been about 23, 24 Celsius here today. Hello, Ellen. Lovely to see you here. So it's been a beautiful day. Your dog sitting for Posy. Oh, we saw a lot of dogs today. A lot of people out with their dogs, making sure they were well watered. All the cafes seem to have bowls outside for the dogs. But it seems like everybody in the whole of the city and in the whole of Lincolnshire really is out here today, enjoying the sunshine, enjoying what the city has to offer. Carol Sue, lovely to see you, and I will pass on everybody's good wishes to Sally Jane. She's not with me here now on the tour. She has made the journey to Lincoln with me. Pete, as recently as that, 4 days ago. Wow. Fran, that doesn't sound good. A forest fire. And sometimes we complain a lot about things we have in the UK, but compared to what people in other parts of the world have, I think we get away pretty lightly, really, don't we? And taking Posy to the hardware store, they always get to give her treats. Yeah, that's what. So I'm not sure how long today's tour is going to be. Basically, I've got to walk back to where I parked the car, so I'm going to basically carry on until I get near where I parked the car, and if it takes us over the usual kind of hour time, well then so be it. If we're a little bit under that, well okay, that's okay too. It's when you kind of do one of these one-off tours, it's always really difficult to know exactly how long it's going to take because you're not used to walking around them and talking, and you're never quite sure how long it's going to take to tell everybody everything. And you should get a treat too. I think so. I think people should get treats. Polly, sounds good. Well, hopefully so. I'm a great believer in the fact that if I've got to walk there anyway, I might as well keep filming, as long as there's a couple of things to show you and show you a little bit more of the town. And if I'm walking that way anyway, I might as well let you all see what I'm seeing, and we'll make the most of the time here. It's not like it's one of the places where I'm going to be coming time again in quick succession. You got to beg for chocolate, Elizabeth. Wow. I don't know what the world's coming to. We're begging for chocolate. Beatrice, you've done most of your duties, so you've got some time to spend with me. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I'm pleased that you're here. And another lovely place. And of course, this is one of our community funded tours, and one of the other funds is now fully funded, and I've decided where I'm going to go. So when we kind of officially start in a couple of minutes, I will sort of tell you that. The world is our personal chocolate bar. Okay. We were doing an online quiz last night, and there was a question about treaties, like international treaties that end wars and things. And Sally Jane said, well, I went to one of those places and nobody gave me a treaty. I would have liked a little bit of chocolate or something, but I never got any treats at all. I said that she should go and sign the Treaty of Bourneville. That would get her some chocolates. Thank you, Beatrice, for posting the link there to the wish list page on Buy Me a Coffee, which is where all of our community funded tours are listed, where you can contribute to the community funded tours like this one. Every little contribution helps, so yeah, it's great to see that people are contributing to those. Oh, that's great, Marlene. Everything, everything that people do to support my work, it all adds up. Linda, am I by any chance opposite the Castle Hotel? Well, it's funny you should say that, because yes, Linda, I absolutely am. You were staying here last week. Pete was here as well. Oh, okay. Was there anybody here who has not been to Lincoln in the last little while? So, just me. I don't even have to entice you, Elizabeth. Sort of like the old carrot and stick approach. I dangle a little chocolate along it. We walked past 2 cheese shops on this tour as well. And you guys know how hard it is for me to walk past cheese shops. Trista, you last in Lincoln in '86. Elizabeth, your first time? Okay. Just Pete and Linda then, and me today. That's okay. Marlene, if you go to the Buy Me a Coffee page, you'll find a page called Wish List, and that has the different funds listed for the different tours that I've got up. Oh, that sounds promising. As the cathedral bells are telling me it is. Oh, there we go. Listen to that. Well, there we go. The cathedral bells have just informed us that it is 4 p.m. So it is time to start our tour. Thank you, Beatrice, for putting the link. Marlene, Beatrice has just put the link in the chat again for the wish list pages. So we are going to make a start. I'm going to begin by welcoming all of you to the beautiful historic city of Lincoln in eastern England. It's a place that has really witnessed all of the different eras in English history, and we're going to be talking about various ones of them along the way. A lot of great things that we can see that are a throwback to those different times. Before we begin, I want to thank everybody who supported this tour by contributing to the fund. And we've just been talking about the wish list page on my Buy Me a Coffee. That's where you can find the next funds for future tours. So as soon as the pot is full, so to speak, we can I can schedule the tour, and then everybody will be able to join it, just like this one. So we are here in Lincoln today, but the next community funded tours that are complete, the one is full, which I called English Towns, and I've decided that well, if we're going to do an English town, we should do an English town with a bit of a silly name. So I'm going to be bringing you a tour from the little town of Market Bosworth very soon, so look out for that one. Now, it is busy in Lincoln today. There is a big event on here called the Lincoln Grand Prix. That's not a car racing event. It's a cycle race. It's a big professional cycling event. The main professional event takes place tomorrow. But today there have been all kinds of kind of amateur cycling club events taking place over the same course, which includes a big steep climb, as you'll see. And so when we get down towards where the cycle race finish line is, there's quite a lot of music and noise. I probably will mute the sound when we get down there, because YouTube's copyright spotters are very, very precise, and if I'm walking past where they're playing music, it could get picked up. The stream could get just taken off straight away. So I will mute that if the music is quite loud as we're walking along there. Okay, so let's turn the camera around, and well, really the thing that I said in the description of the tour was that we'd be talking about the Roman origins of the town, and we'd be talking about Lincoln Castle, and we'd be talking about Lincoln Cathedral. Well, the bricks on the square where we're starting the tour mark out the site of some of the former buildings in the Roman Forum. Just up there are the walls of Lincoln Castle, and just over there the towers of Lincoln Cathedral. So that was a short tour, wasn't it? I'm going home now. No, well, I think we can see a little bit more than that. And across the way, the Castle Hotel, I believe, where Linda stayed just last week. So we're going to this part, the historic part of Lincoln, is built on a big steep hill. That's where the Romans built their fortifications. It's where the Normans built a castle. It's where the cathedral was built. It's where the wealthy people built their residences. It's a great spot to be, because Lincolnshire, this area of eastern England, is a very, very flat area. There are not many hills. So when you have a big hill like this, you build a castle on it, you can see everybody in air from miles and miles around. It gives you such a strong strategic position. You're also above the little river called the Witham that flows through the city. You're close to the valley of the River Trent, one of the biggest rivers in England. You have easy access to the sea, and it was close to two of the biggest Roman roads in England. The Fossway, it was the end of the Fossway, which went well over 200 miles all the way down to Exeter in Devon, and it was also on or close to Ermine Street, which was the main Roman road that ran from London to York. So the perfect place to build a fortification. And the Romans came here not within a few years of invading England. They came here and established a legionary encampment here on this hill about 49 AD. And that fortification was called by the Romans Lindum. It's believed that the old Iron Age settlement here was called Lindon. Lin means a pool, and there's kind of a wide area of the river in the centre of the city that is kind of like a pool, and that's what it's named after. So it's an old Celtic word, so like the capital of Ireland, Dublin, that means black pool. The Lin means pool, same word. So the Lindon here, Lindum. The Romans, as they advanced through England, they moved the main seat of the legions from Lincoln to York, from Lindum to Eboracum. And what happened then was that the former Roman legionary fortification here started to become a Roman town, and it was called a colonia. That was a Roman town that was settled by veterans when they finished their military service, and so it became Lindum Colonia, and that's where the name of Lincoln comes from, Lindum Colonia. Okay, so up here we are standing in the centre of Roman Lincoln, Lindum Colonia. We are in the Roman Forum, the main centre of commerce and trade and commercial activity and civic life within the Roman encampment, okay? And so I'm going to mute. And what I hope you can see down here, sorry I did mute for a while, I went past some music. This down here, these are the remains of a Roman well. So this is one of the water sources that the people of Linden were using almost 2,000 years ago, and there's quite a bit of reflection from the glass that's covering it over. But these are real Roman remains, okay? So it's an old Roman well. This part of town up here on the hill is absolutely lovely, and because, you know, people were visiting, if people were visiting, they might well be visiting wealthy residents, they might be visiting the cathedral as on religious pilgrimage, they might be visiting the castle for some reason. So there's always been a lot of inns and taverns around this area. Many of them remain. One here called the Prince of Wales Inn. And then one of the oldest inns in the city of Lincoln is this one, which is called the Lion and Snake. Very interesting name. The Lion and Snake. Very, very busy. The outdoor seating getting particularly good use today. But the Lion and Snake dates back about 400 years as a building, and it's certainly been an inn for most of that period. So one of the real historic drinking places within the city. And this is an absolutely lovely shopping street, lots of independent shops, lots of shops of artisan products of various kinds, from food to jewellery to textiles. Really, really lovely part of town. And maybe we can slither in. Oh, I like it, Elizabeth. We have to. Yeah, I had a look earlier. Another lovely little street here. Actually, we were going to go here for some lunch, but all the tables were taken at the little tea rooms. But lovely nice little street, and we can see at the end of the road the castle walls. The castle walls were built at the end of the 11th century, and they're still very, very intact. Brilliant preservation, the castle here at Lincoln. Oh, the whiskey shop. Oh. You really can get everything here. A lot of cyclists. Those cyclists are looking far too energetic for people who've just cycled up this big hill. I was originally planning to do the tour finishing up here and starting in the town, which would have definitely tested my lungs and my overall fitness and my legs. But actually, as I was planning it, I thought, no, it made more sense to start up here in terms of the origin, because this is where the origins of the town were. So we're actually going to go down the steep hill. I might be more likely to actually fall over on going down, but I'm less likely to be puffing and panting and able to speak. So here's another one of the big inns and hotels here, and that is the White Hart Hotel. Quite a common name for pubs and inns in England, one of the most common, and like a lot of our very old pub names, it relates to a royal family. In this case, the White Hart was the insignia of a king many, many years ago, back in the 14th century. The king was Richard II, and it was in the time of Richard II that a law was first introduced that inns and places selling drinks had to advertise that fact by having some kind of sign. And so a lot of them kind of showed, we are obeying the king's laws, by actually using the king's insignia, the king's symbol of the White Hart, as their pub name. That's why it remains so popular to this day. But Richard II also has a very particular link to Lincoln. He came to the city and conducted a special ceremony to it was a new town council that was instituted under his reign, and he presented the town, the city, with a sword, and it's still there today. It is part of the town's kind of insignia. They carry it, the mayor will have it on ceremonial occasions, and I'll show you a bit later the building where that is housed and where the mayor is. So the White Hart, and the multicoloured flag there, that's the flag of the county of Lincolnshire. So shows there's not much wind today, but just a little breath of wind to show us. And the Linden Books. What lovely shops we have here. Linda, no, we're not going down to the Newport Arch. We're going to have a look around this area a little bit, and then we're going to go down into the city centre. I know, a bookshop and ice cream parlour, even better. Now we've got a great building on the corner here. This is a 15th century timber frame building. It was originally built for a wealthy merchant. You'll see the whole of it when we go around the corner, but I will have to mute around there because it's the finishing line of the cycle race, and there's music playing quite loudly. And it's called Lee Pemberton House these days because it was owned by the National Westminster Bank in the 20th century, and then it was given by them into the care of the local city council, and it was renamed after the chairman of the bank at the time, Sir Robert Lee Pemberton. But it was a private residence of one of the wealthy merchants of Lincoln in the 15th century, and now houses the city's tourist information centre. So we're going to go around the corner, and you'll see the finish line to the cycling event. There's a lot of music going on, so I'm going to mute just as we walk through that bit up towards the castle. So I'm back on the Sound, and we're walking towards one of the main gates of Lincoln Castle. So Lincoln Castle was on the site of the Roman fortification, and it was built, first of all, the castle here was ordered in the year 1068, just 2 years after King William the Conqueror had come over from Normandy and defeated the last Saxon king of England, Harold Godwinson, down at Hastings. And again, he was like the Romans over 1,000 years earlier. You know, he was moving up through England trying to secure his conquest. And this part of England was one of the parts of England that had been under Viking rule, had been under Danish rule. It was called the Danelaw. Lincoln was declared one of the so-called 5 boroughs, so the eastern part of central England. This was the area ruled by the Danes previously, and so William I ordered castles to help to control the north, to prevent rebellions, and to particularly here control this whole territory that had been once ruled by Scandinavians. And just as the Romans recognised the strategic location here, so did he. This castle was built, first they would have built a timber one so they quickly can establish, but they built straight away almost in stone, and the castle walls and fortifications, as we see, were pretty much completed by the year 1115. So by the early 12th century, the castle walls were completed. The medieval walls are still in pretty good shape. You can walk around them when you pay to go into the castle. And we've got a lot of some of them beautiful medieval residential parts of the castle here as well. This is always a place not only of military force, but a place where very wealthy local politicians and power holders were actually living. But we can come into the main section of the castle, the main castle courtyard. And what can we see? Well, we can see the castle walls around us. Beautiful courtyard. There's been a little market here today, all things for dogs. And I think there might even have been a little dog show here this morning, because we saw some dogs with little rosettes on when we arrived up here at lunchtime. But they're selling dog treats, dog well-being, wool, natural material, dog beds. You can even, if you see all the cute dogs and think, I want one of my own, they've even got the dog rescue place here where you can get one of the dogs for yourself. So the castle grounds being well used today by the doggy people. Now, what are the buildings in here now? Well, obviously the medieval military buildings are no longer here, but the castle was still used, or is still used really, in terms of law and order, because this building was built in the 18th century, and from around the year 1770 until the 20th century, this was the main jail, the main prison of Lincoln, and it was built. They had different theories about how best to incarcerate and possibly rehabilitate prisoners, and this was an example of what was known as the separate system, where prisoners were kept, regardless of their crime, in complete isolation from one another. Single cells, they had no contact at all with any other prisoners, and the idea was that that would prevent the prisoners from being kind of a bad influence on one another, and give them time to be in isolation, thinking about what they'd done, and maybe resolving to make a change in their lives. I think we all know that the impact of keeping people in complete isolation with no human contact is a pretty barbaric thing to do, and it's something that would never be kind of considered as a way of potentially rehabilitating people. But one of the features that this prison does have that is still there, even though the prison is no longer obviously used, is that the chapel was created there, and the chapel is still there. The chapel is unique because it's a chapel where each prisoner, when they went into the chapel for the religious services, they had an enclosed little bench, so they could not see. They had wooden boards all around them. They could not see any of the other prisoners. The only person they could see was the preacher. The preacher could see all of them, but they could not see anyone but the preacher. So it was a really kind of strange system that they were trying out then. They did use other forms of more modern imprisonment there later, and this system was not so much used, but a modern prison was built and moved out of here. This is now houses the castle administration. There's a cafe and gift shop in there, and also the castle archives. Now, one building that is still in use is this one. This is a courthouse. So there's been a courthouse on this site for hundreds of years, because the castle was the seat of the local power players in the area and the seat of justice, and the local government in some ways. And the courthouse was built here in the 19th century, in the 1840s, in fact, as the local assizes court, and it is still the Crown Court. It's still in operation today as a courthouse. So despite the castle being sort of an old medieval building, it's very much still being used. Now, what else have we got? Well, we've got an interesting statue of an English king over here. It used to be on a memorial elsewhere in the city, but the memorial, I don't know whether it was demolished or suffered damage, but the sculpture of this particular king from it was brought here. That is King George III, the one who was called mad, although you know what conditions he suffered from. I know Sally Jane thought it was Queen Victoria first of all when we saw it from the side, and I can see the family resemblance. So this is King George, and he's depicted, he's King George, but showing his George. There we have St. George represented, St. George killing the dragon. So here he is. And it's King George III. And talking of George and the dragon, well, as luck would have it, this castle does have a couple of dragons. Look at these. Might have had a dog show earlier today, but we have dragons as well. I think they're asleep. Shh. Let's not wake them, eh? Yeah. They're fantastic, aren't they? I don't know how often they do it, but they do have some sort of steam and things coming out of their nostrils at various intervals, but you guarantee they won't do it while we're here, though. There you are, people still walking around the walls up there, you can see. And there's his tail through the... Yeah, so they are so cool. Oh, so we can see more of the fortifications there and that prison building. And there were, obviously at one time we did have public executions for the most, well, not even for the most serious crimes, for many crimes. But in the time that this prison was mainly operational, they'd kind of reduced the number of crimes you could get executed for, so there were never that many here. But one of the most famous of the Victorian hangmen, Marwood, he began his career here at Lincoln Jail. He hanged his first prisoner here inside the prison itself. So it was after the days of public executions. In 1872, he hanged the first man of his career here. Just 4 years earlier, the last public execution had taken place, and they used to do those up on the walls of the castle up there, where everybody from the upper town was able to actually see the executions taking place, public executions still going on at that time. Oh, that. So let's make our way back out of the castle a little bit, shall we? And oh, that's the doggy bed. The doggy bed company, look, is called Wool and Woofers. And We'll make our way back to the castle. And as we come out of the castle, one of the other things that this castle is very well known for is that it has one of only 4 remaining original documents of the Magna Carta, the Great Charter, which King John was forced to sign by his rebellious barons back in the year 1215. And it was one of the first kind of bills of rights, and it's kind of an inspiration for anyone who's trying to draw up constitutions and to establish a system based on the rule of law and so on. The Magna Carta, there are 4 extant copies of it. One is here, one is at Salisbury Cathedral, and 2 are in the British Library. And the Magna Carta, hugely important document. Ronnie, I don't know what the qualifications for being a hangman were. Willingness, I think, would have been one of the sort of not being too squeamish about what you had to do. So the Magna Carta in there, and the Magna Carta, revolutionary as it was and iconic as it is, neither of the 2 sides, the barons or the king, adhered to it. Very low light levels. Yeah, Linda, I've not seen the one here. I've seen the one at Salisbury Cathedral, and yeah, they really are such amazing documents, and really precious. Some of the most precious documents I think that we have in Britain, really. They're so iconic, so important. So we're going back into the music again, but look ahead of us. Look at the towers of the cathedral. The 3 towers, the 2 western towers and the central tower. And I'm going to mute in a moment as we're coming into the area of the music. Okay, so we are about to go through the gateway here into Elizabeth, the Magna Carta store. It's not a store, it's a pub. So they sell beer and food. So here is a beautiful Lincoln Cathedral, one of the most magnificent religious buildings in England. And the cathedral itself was built, built deliberately. I mean, all cathedrals were built deliberately, but it was built for a specific purpose. And no, Cheryl, I had to have to mute when I'm going past where the music is playing loudly, because YouTube is very hot on copyright violations. So the cathedral was essentially built on the instigation of King William I, just a few years after the castle had been built, and he requested that a bishop from in Oxfordshire. Now there's a town down south of Oxford called Dorchester-on-Thames. It's really a little village, but it has a beautiful, huge medieval church that used to be the site of a monastery, and that used to actually be a cathedral. It was the site of a bishop, and the king instructed this bishop to move his cathedral base from Dorchester-on-Thames to Lincoln and to build a new cathedral on the hill adjacent to the castle. Now the idea of that was twofold. One was to establish the twin powers, so you had secular power with the castle and then the religious power in the same place, so you were concentrating the power. It was also designed to send a message to the English people, to the Anglo-Saxon people, that God was on the side of the Normans. The Norman conquerors were God's people, and they were chosen by God to rule this country, and their splendour of their cathedrals and their religious buildings would show this off. Okay, now on the western front here of the cathedral we have the remaining parts of the original 11th century building from the year 1092, and that is the three main doorways and archways, which, as you can see, have rounded tops, very typical of Norman or Romanesque architecture. So that is absolutely typical Romanesque Norman style. And this section, the central section here of this west front, is the kind of original section. So the three black doors here and the archways, the round topped arches just to the sides of them, that was the original width of the cathedral. The later extensions were in the 13th and 14th centuries, when it was widened, lengthened, and the towers were extended upwards in a Gothic style. So we start to have pointed windows, pointy arches, and everything reaching upwards was very much the Gothic style. So what have we got? We've got some really beautiful carvings on the cathedral here. We've got bishops up here on the front, and we've got kings of England, and that's really the Normans trying to make a link back to connect themselves to the old kings from the past. So we are not new conquerors of England, we are a continuous line from the great kings of the past. And those statues are still here. There's a lot of empty places on the cathedral where there would once have been statues. They would have been the statues of saints. And when we came to the Reformation, when the end of Catholic control over the church in England, and we got into a time where the Church of England was established, they got rid of a lot of the Catholic star decorations. So all of the saints' statues were removed, destroyed. But of course, kings, bishops, that's not, as they saw it, idolatry. That's just kind of a representation of historical figures. So they kept them in place. And the door itself is just stunning, isn't it? I mean, we all know I like a door. Susan, you're absolutely right. The Normans would need every bit of help. They needed all the churches, all the cathedrals, all the monasteries they could have praying for them if they were thinking of getting in to heaven. But look at the dragon's heads, the end of the curves there. They're almost, it's very sort of almost Celtic, Norse, pagan symbols that are still going on at these times. They're brilliant, aren't they? And these carvings are just people, figures, and just incredible. They have been, obviously, they have been restored. But, you know, these animal figures here around the door, they are so typical of Norman church doorways. You can see them on churches of that era. Peter, it is one of the largest cathedrals in the UK, yes. There are, I think, Durham might be bigger, Liverpool Anglican Cathedral is bigger, St Paul's in London, but it is, and interestingly, for the towers of the cathedral that we see today, they are 83 metres high. But in medieval times, they had spires on them, and so they were twice as high as they are today. And that was made this cathedral for over 200 years the tallest building in the world. From when those towers were built, it took over from the Great Pyramid of Giza. And then when those spires were removed because they were dangerous in 1548, a church in northern Germany at 151 metres with its spire became the highest in the world. And look at this restored sculpture up there. This is supposed to show demons tempting people and some of the torments that the unrighteous will be undergoing when they go the way that the Normans probably deserve to go, many of them, but we're hoping that they wouldn't. Elizabeth, you can't even imagine how awestruck the people would have been to see something like this appearing. And, you know, this hilltop location, even today, from miles around, you see this building. You know, it literally is visible all over the place. And, you know, it's even, we know these kinds of things, we've seen them, we're familiar with them, but for people back then to be travelling and suddenly see this thing on the hill in front of them, you know, it must have been absolutely incredible for those people. It's just a beautiful structure, isn't it? And it's really quite difficult to imagine that they had spires that made those towers twice as high as they are. It's pretty incredible. Now, the most famous sculpture in the cathedral is a little sculpture of a little demon, which is called the Lincoln Imp. And the Lincoln Imp has become a symbol of the city. And it's also on the badge of the football team from Lincoln, who are called the Imps. And the Lincoln Imp, the sculpture and the legend of its origin is that the devil let a lot of his demons out to play on earth to cause mischief, and one of them came here to Lincoln Cathedral, and the demon said, oh, he was going to make trouble, and he was going to trip over the bishop when he was trying to conduct the services, and he was going to push and nudge the dean while he was trying to do the gospel readings, and he was going to throw stones at the choir when they were singing. And so the demon was performing all this mischief, and some angels came because they thought, well, they saw what was going on. They thought, well, we've got to come and defend this church. And one of the angels turned that demon into stone, and they say that demon that can still be seen in the cathedral, the Lincoln Imp. We'll see a shop that's got some pictures of the Lincoln Imp in a little while. He was turned into stone, and he's been there ever since. So let's have a last look up at this beautiful facade, shall we? And before we leave the cathedral behind and head down into the centre of the town. Absolutely amazing. So I am going to mute again as we go out of here, because Okay, so the street that leads up from the centre of town to the castle and the cathedral has a very apt name, Steep Hill. And you'll see as we go down it, this is not the steep bit, this is the not very steep bit towards the top. And it's the first of the cheese shops there, look. Here's the cheese shop. Here's the mouse. The Mouse House is the name of the cheese shop. I didn't go in there, honest. And lovely old buildings, coffee houses and old pubs and everything down this section. A little bit of Lincolnshire. So we're plum bread on the left, another great Lincolnshire speciality. This is where this is where I live. Well, I don't know whether you lose me going in the cheese shop or I lose all of you going into the other lovely food shops down here. But lovely shops down. Oh, here's the chocolate shop. Look, I know Lincolnshire fudge. I know you'll like to see these. Look. And what are these? Oh, look at those. Very nice. Linda, no plums in the plum bread. No, plum bread is very nice. Cheryl, I did not buy any cheese today. I did buy some a couple of days ago. So I didn't buy any today. So it's just a lovely spot. And look at the cyclists making their way up. Look where they've got to come. They're coming all the way up here to that finish line up by the cathedral. Oh, look at those poor guys. We've got some tea mugs here, and these have got a picture of the Lincoln Imp on, and I'll put a picture of the Lincoln Imp on the Facebook group as well. But that's what the Lincoln Imp sculpture looks like in the cathedral. So he really does look pretty cool, actually, doesn't he? Yeah, Imp tea bags. Yeah, Lincoln Imp tea bags. There we go. And then an acrobatic cow as well. Look at that. Or dead, I don't know. So, as we look through there, you can see up on this hill, you can just kind of see that the road just drops and you get this really sharp hill. And that's why this main street up from the city centre is called Steep Hill. And here in the centre we have another beautiful timber frame building, an old inn. There used to be an inn on that side. It's empty at the moment. That inn used to be called the Harlequin. But it's another building that started life as a private residence. Probably may well have had a business on the ground floor, but then the residence, family residence above, and it dates back to the 14th century in parts. So really ancient buildings. But now this is still Steep Hill, but this is still not the really steep bit. Still not the really steep bit. This is kind of the middling amount of steep. So, but you can see it's pretty steep. It's really steep. Now here's a lovely place on the on Steep Hill, Bunty's Tea Room. A lovely tea room, cakes and for lunches. We had a sandwich there to go today. We took it away and we ate it on the grass by the cathedral, Bunty's Tea Room. But one of the things we noticed was a lovely letter they have framed, and it's a letter from Windsor Castle. And I'll just read it to you because it's really cool. It says, "To Faye and all the staff at Bunty's Tea Room, the Queen wishes me to write and thank you for your message of good wishes on the occasion of Her Majesty's 96th birthday. It is also kind of you to tell the Queen of the afternoon tea you have planned to celebrate Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee. Although unable to accept, the Queen was touched you invited her to join you and hopes the event is enjoyed by all who attend. Her Majesty is grateful for your thoughtfulness in writing at this time." And that's from the Lady in Waiting at Windsor Castle on the 19th of May 2022. So for the Jubilee, and of course just a few months before the Queen sadly passed away. But they quite right that they have the letter there in the frame. Really, really lovely. Interesting place there. Just to reassure you, it's that kind of pot. But they're quite cool actually. So used to be the hall of a church, St Michael's Church, but now it's a little sort of restaurant, and there's also a little hotel there as well. And we did comment today, imagine living there, you come up from town, you come all up this hill, and then you've got to go up these steps to get to your gate. We weren't quite sure what it'd be like bringing the rubbish out from up there and to leave it on the street. But you can see, steep hill, getting steeper. And very interesting street name here as well, Danes Gate. So that Danes Gate. So it tells us that the Danes were here, and gate is the word for a street that you will find in all the Viking ruled places. Like in York, it was the Scandinavian word for gata for a street. So it's not to do with a gate like where you go through. It's very important to remember that. Marlene, that's great. You've got two letters from the Lady in Waiting. It's lovely. They do reply to the things. I know that some of the kids that Sally Jane teaches, they wrote letters to Duchess of Cambridge, as she was then, Princess of Wales as she is now, Catherine, and they received very lovely replies as well from the office staff. So when we say we're going on to Steep Hill, this is the steep bit. This is the bit where I think I might fall over. Lovely buildings here, lovely gardens, the old lamps. But this really is getting pretty steep now, you can see. And roller skates might be okay on the flat bit. On these cobblestones, roller skates would be not the best. And I also am not quite sure what it would be like walking up here after a very rainy day and also in the winter. I would not want to do it. You did get up it, you didn't walk down it. Well, I walked up it earlier and then we walked down, and then I have to confess that I got the bus back up to start the tour. I cheated, but I thought, I want to have a little bit of energy left to actually do the tour. So that was my intention there. So let's. I'm definitely watching where I'm putting my feet. Somebody I was chatting to when I was waiting for the bus, they told me that they lived in Lincoln. They said one of their friends works in the city centre, and after work every day they run up and down 3 times, and then they go home from work, and that's their kind of workout for the day. And we've got an old site of an old well here, public drinking place, Well Lane. And we decided that was because you get to here and you say, well, it's about time for a rest. Home of the very fit Well, the problem is, you see, I suppose the only thing is if you can walk up to the top and then you can have your cake or your chocolate or your afternoon tea or your ice cream or all those lovely things that they sell up at the top of the hill. Okay, so we've seen a cathedral that dates back in part to the 11th century. We've seen a castle that dates back in part to the 11th century. We don't often see residential homes that date back so far in history, domestic property. But here in Lincoln, we do have one. A stone building here, halfway up the hill. It's known as the Jews' House because it was the site of, it was lived in by a number of Jewish families, and it dates back to around 1160. It is believed to be one of the very oldest surviving residential and domestic buildings in the whole of the country. Dates back to about 1160. How amazing is that? And the Jews' House, there was a thriving Jewish community in Lincoln. There were 5 cities that had thriving Jewish communities, and Lincoln was one of them. But in the later times, the Jewish community was very heavily persecuted, and all the Jewish people were expelled from England by King Edward I. But the name lived on in the fact that this was known as where the Jewish people had lived, the Jews' House, and next to it is another building called Jews' Court, which was taken over when the Jewish people moved back to the city. As late as the 17th century, they kind of moved back into the same area, reclaimed these houses, and these medieval buildings were taken over and used as a site of meeting and community centre for the Jewish community. And the Jewish people who live in Lincoln these days, they do still meet there for some of their religious purposes. So a tradition of Jewish meetings and community and those kind of things going back many centuries here, but massively important, this building, in terms of just its sheer age as a residential building. So we get a great view. Look how we see a little bit how far we've come down by how much we can see. As we look up, you can just about see the cathedral towers peeping up over the top of the roofs and the trees there as we've come down steep hill. And now that the street kind of changes name and it becomes known as the Straight, which is Straight, and it becomes a little bit more modern, although many of the buildings have kind of a slightly modern frontage. And it is a continuation of the medieval street. The way that the town developed really was that the wealthy people, the centre of power up on the hill, the cathedral, the castle, the big merchants' houses, and then the markets, the commercial life of the city, the places where the ordinary people were dwelling closer to the centre of town, down towards the river Witham. Elizabeth, the modern population's about 130,000, so it is a good-sized city. Quite a thriving city. It's got a university, and we saw as we were having our lunch, we saw 4 young girls, and they got kind of quite nice dresses on, and they were taking photos in front of the cathedral with their completed university dissertations, and they just had them printed off, and so they'd taken these kind of photos, and then they were going to go and hand them in on Monday. We were very nosy. We wondered what they were doing, so we asked them. I have to say, we asked them. So they were. It was lovely to see, and one of them said that the one who we asked her dissertation was something to do with it's biochemistry, I think, something to do with proteins and Alzheimer's. So a really important sort of medical biochemistry research field that they were involved in. So as you can see, we're really coming down into the heart of the modern city. Very busy still, a lot of people out, you know, it's Saturday coming into the early evening, a lot of people out to enjoy themselves. But we are going to continue all the way down to the river. Lorna, yes. Well, there are, you know, there are good public transport. There is a bus that runs from down here in the centre up to the cathedral and the castle. It runs every half hour, just £2. I just paid £2 to go up there. You can go all the way around, I think, for a single ticket. So it is, you know, and the good thing about that, apart from the one really very steep bit, there are plenty of places to stop and sit down, to go in and get a cup of tea. You know, there's sedan chair, Lorna, and that's what you need. So we're actually going to cross a road here. You know, most of the sort of roads we've been on have been kind of shared pedestrian and vehicle roads, but this is an actual road with traffic lights and a pedestrian crossing on it. No, you can see it is a really busy, but I'm guessing that if you went to sort of any large town or city today, it's going to be the same, because like I say, this is kind of the first nice weather weekend we've had this year, and you know, people are out enjoying it. Quite right. The winter seemed to have lasted forever this year, so you know, I don't blame anyone for being out and about enjoying the sunshine. But it might look like we are in the modern bit of the city and we've left all the history behind us, but I promise you that is not true, because we have another couple of spots where the history of the city really comes back with a vengeance, which I wanted to show you before we end. Susan, yeah, there are car parks up by the cathedral. Yeah, you can drive up there. The car parks up there are not the cheapest, because obviously supply and demand. Down in the town, parking is really pretty reasonable. I parked in a car park just by where we're going to finish the tour in a few minutes, and it's cost me less than £4 for a 24-hour ticket, which I think is pretty good. So ahead of us we've got an old gate. Now this was the site of the southern gate of the Roman town. So parts of the stone that are within this gate date back to, as far as has been able to be confirmed, the early 3rd century AD. And the remainder of that gate was built in the 13th century. So there was always a gate here, and the Scandinavians, when they were ruling here, they called this Steinboggy, and that's why it has the name Stonebow to this day. Steinboggy, the Danish word for this archway. So it was the stone arch that meant. So you have the 13th century stone arch on top of the, using Roman remains from the 3rd century, and above it you have the Guildhall, and the Guildhall is the seat of the local government to this day. It was a 15th century building that they built across the top of the Stonebow, and they have used it ever since then for meetings and for ceremonies. So that is where you can find this sword that I said that Richard II presented to the city. There's also a mace, so a sort of a ceremonial staff that was presented to the city by King Charles I, and various other kind of the insignia and treasures of the local city, and it's where the mayoral events and formalities take place. So a really important historic building for 1,800 years. So Stonebow, it's called. Stonebow and the Guildhall. Now, I did say right at the beginning that we were on a hill and it overlooks the river. The river is quite difficult to spot because it's not a huge river and it does go between a lot of the houses, but we're going to go and take a look at the river. And what we're going to do is take a look at this fantastic building here on the right hand side. This is called Stokes. Stokes is a tea room that dates back almost about just over 100 years, I think. But the building itself was built around 1550 during the reign of King Henry VIII. And actually, I can tell you that when you go to the bathrooms within the tea room, on the gentlemen's there's a picture of King Henry VIII, and on the ladies there are pictures of two of his wives. I don't know whether they rotate them, so all six get a turn. I don't know, but but this building is interesting for a particular reason. It's because it's called High Bridge House, and believe it or not, we are standing on the bridge. We are standing on the main and the original bridge over the River Witham. And the bridge here was built in the middle of the 12th century. A stone bridge, and like many of the bridges at that time, it had buildings on it. And some of those buildings were replaced with this one in 1550. But the stone bridge, and this is actually the oldest bridge in the United Kingdom that still has buildings upon it. So out of any bridge you see with buildings on it, this is the oldest. And the High Bridge, it's called, and here is the River Witham. It basically takes the main street of the town, which continues further these days down to the railway station, but outwards, southwards from the town, from the old town gates there. It takes the main road over the river, and this is the River Witham. Very narrow at this point, kept under control when the area was developed. Just beyond here, behind where we're walking now, it does open out considerably. But really interesting, quite, I think quite tasteful modern buildings opposite, but we get a great view back from here to the river going there under that bridge, with the tea rooms, the black and white building on top of it. And it is a pinch point on the river, and it is very susceptible to flooding. This bridge and this walkway does often have to be closed because all of the water is channeled through a very narrow spot as it goes under the high bridge. And when there's a flood surge, it is quite a difficult thing to manage. We are going to just walk a little tiny bit further because we can stand on the modern bridge and we do get a great view back along the river towards the high bridge, and with a great contrast of modern buildings and old ones, and really is kind of a very different atmosphere, but very lovely actually. This part of the city has had a lot of development gone on, and they've got an old market hall. The old agricultural corn exchange building has just been redeveloped, and it's about to reopen as a new market hall. here. Just going to see it on the right hand side. Oh, my hat nearly blew into the river then. So look at this beautiful 19th century building, the Corn Hall, and that has just been fitted out as a modern market. So amazing that they're really making a great job of redeveloping this part of town. And there's more kind of old shopping streets. Oh, there's the pigeons coming at us. And we've also got a lovely boat there, the Moonraker floating tea room. And get a cup of tea on a cake on the boat there. And another of the oldest pubs in the city is down here by the river. I mean, I guess you'd always expect to find a few pubs by the Riverside, and it's very much the case here in Lincoln. And the pub has an interesting name. I don't know what its original name was, but let me show you what it's called. As you can see, the stonework at the back of the building, it's a very ancient building with timber framing on it. It's called the Witch and Wardrobe. So we better be careful, because someone is missing a lion, and I hope it's not wandering around looking for its dinner. So let's go over to this section, and here we really get a look at the modern sculpture there with the two figures, and then the river with the modern buildings, and then the historic high bridge with the timber framed building on it. Isn't that a lovely view? And that is the view I'm going to actually finish with, and you get to see me again, which if you see that lion sneaking up on me, please do shout up, won't you? It's behind you. It'll be like a best pantomime season. So hope you've enjoyed this little stroll around Lincoln. We've seen a lot, we've packed a lot in, I think, and but I wanted to show you as much as I could as we've made our way here, and people have generously contributed towards making this tour possible. So it's a really interesting city, from the amazing cathedral and the history of the Roman area and the castle, right down to those wonderful houses, steep hills, and the shops and tea rooms right down here to the Riverside. And it's fantastic to have shared it with you. So I thank you again for coming. If you've missed any of it, if you joined late or you just want to watch again, it will be on the YouTube channel. You can watch the recording there. I'll leave it up as a public video for about a couple of weeks or so. And thank you, Beatrice, for putting a link to the Padlet up. And the Padlet is where you can find details of all my upcoming tours and talks on all different platforms. So the next tour that I have is a week tomorrow, Sunday the 19th, and that is going to be an As Live tour, and that's the last of the videos so far that I've taken on my trips to Germany. I'm going to be showing you around a fantastic city, the city of Munich. And so definitely try and check that one out if you can. And thank you to Beatrice for putting the link up to the shop page of Buy Me a Coffee, where you can book all the upcoming tours. And we have our next Everybody Has a Story interview scheduled as well, which is with the lovely Linda in New York, who has agreed to be the next guest for that. And that's the Ko-fi link that Beatrice has put up as well. If you prefer to pay in US dollars or to use PayPal, that's where you can do both of those things. Some good news on the horizon for those of you that like to pay in a different currency. Buy Me a Coffee has introduced a multi-currency feature. Finally, I've been badgering them, and I'm sure other content creators have been badgering them for a long time to add that feature, and they have now added it. But I do need to have a couple of days where I tweak things around, and I have to be very careful that I don't want the payment facilities to disappear for while the new one is coming in. So I do need to kind of work that out how I'm going to do it for the best, but very soon Buy Me a Coffee will have the option of paying in a whole variety of different currencies. It'll automatically convert, I will put the price in pounds, and it will automatically convert it into your local currency or the currency of your choice. So that's something that will be hopefully coming very, very soon. So the wish list, of course, is there, and Beatrice has put the link to there. Thank you, Beatrice. You've worked very hard putting all these links up. You deserve to go for a cup of tea in one of the tea shops up on the steep hill, or just in your apartment for now. Thank you very much for your help with those. We've got the English Towns one, the Cotswolds one is nearly completed, and we've got the Stratford boat trip, which is now which has started to build up as well. That's the next one of our community funded tours that's on the site. So have a wonderful rest of your Saturday, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for supporting me and supporting this tour, and I will hopefully see you very, very soon. Bye for now, everybody.